And now we're digging into the next step for Staff Sergeant Robert Bales. So far, he has not been charged with a crime, but he has hired a civilian attorney, John Henry Brown. Joining us for some Military Justice 101 is former Army JAG lawyer Greg Rinckey. Greg, nice to have you on the show this morning. Let's just ask this. Will Robert Bales face the death penalty if and when he is charged?
Well, that's a good question. I think a lot is going to depend on the defense that's put on by his military defense counsel and the civilian defense counsel. Good chance there's going to be a mental capacity defense. So he might not even get that far to a sentencing.
And you say mental capacity because of the traumatic brain injury?
Traumatic brain injury, the multiple deployments, the fact that the day before, I think there was some mention that he had a buddy that had a leg blown off. There's a lot of issues here that are going to raise a mental capacity defense.
In terms of where he's staying in this facility in Leavenworth, Kansas, are there military guidelines for how long a soldier can actually stay there before he's charged?
Well, he has to be brought before a military magistrate within 7 days, and then the government has to bring him to trial within 120 days. So max that he can really stay there would be 120 days before he can be brought to trial. Likely, though, the defense is going to bring motions probably to the Army Court of Criminal Appeals to raise some mental capacity issues, and that this is not the proper place for him right now.
Now, we know he has the civilian attorney. Will he also receive a military defense counsel? And if so, who pays for that?
Yes, he has the right to have military defense counsel. Likely he'll have a team of senior military defense counsel. Probably a team of at least 3 Army JAGs will represent him, and that's provided at government expense.
How does this whole process differ from what a general view of a civilian court is?
Well, instead of a grand jury proceeding, there's a hearing that's called an Article 32 hearing, and that would probably be the next step that's going to happen after he's charged, is he would go before an Article 32 hearing. Recommendation is made to the commander, who's called the convening authority. Convening authority then makes a decision as to whether to refer the charges to court-martial.
And in terms of his options for if and when he is charged, I mean, we mentioned this, the possible defense. Do you think that is the best way to go in terms of using his many tours there in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Yes, based on my experience and what I've heard so far from the evidence, clearly defense counsel is going to raise a mental capacity defense in this case. What
can you tell me just about this facility and how it works? Any idea how often? I mean, we know he gets outside a little bit, but how much freedom does he have to speak with his lawyer? How does this whole process work?
Well, he's at the military disciplinary barracks at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. He should have the ability to speak to his civilian defense counsel and military defense counsel rather freely, especially because of the seriousness of this case. They're going to also want him to be examined by mental health providers, and I believe that motion is going to be made very quickly.
He's also not being held with others. He's in his own cell. Does that tell you anything at all?
I think that's probably standard for the type of charge that he's got and the seriousness of the charge. And also, he's in pretrial confinement, so he shouldn't be mingled with inmates or prisoners that are serving out their sentences.
All right. Greg Rinckey, appreciate your insight there. Fascinating conversation. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.